Although everybody's thinking about how to manage agents, how to deploy agents, how to get agents to do what they want to do, how to not run out of context, my question for you is, what about the security, network, and observability around these agents, right? So like, how are you securing and setting up communication and authentication and authorization and just observability protocols overall and security protocols overall when it comes to A2A or agent to MCP? How are you doing it? Well, that's where Agent Gateway comes into play. And I'm going to show you two pieces of the puzzle. We're going to take a look at connecting MCP servers, and then we'll see some tools. And then we'll also take a look at what it looks like to deploy some A2A workloads and connect to them via Agent Gateway. So conceptually, when we're thinking about MCP servers, when we're thinking about agents, when we're thinking about agentic infrastructure, what does it more or less look like underneath the hood if you're, just doing this in raw programmatic fashion? Well, kind of looks like this. So for example, I'm using ADK to set up some agents, right? I have my agent here. I have the thing that I want my agent to be able to do. And then I have my MCP tool set. So in this case, for example, I'm connecting to the Kubernetes MCP server, and here's the list of tools, right? Here's the things that it can do. Now, okay, this is great, but like, how are other people going to connect to it? And that's where a server comes into play. So in this case, for example, this is the way that I would take my agent and make it accessible to others. Now, in this case, I'm just doing it locally, right? But like, you can hit this with any gateway that you want. All right, and then you have your agent skill, and then you have your agent card, and everything to actually make this thing accessible, right? This thing being the agent. But how about observability? How about token usage? How about security? How about just knowing what your agent is talking to, knowing how the communication works? Well, again, that's where something like Agent Gateway will come into play for this. So first I want to take a look at it from a local perspective, just to give some visual, and then we'll take a look at it from a code perspective. So if I bring up this config here, this is an Agent Gateway config. And notice how I have my ports, I have my routes, I have some CORS rules, which don't do this in production. These wildcards are just for testing. And then some allow methods. And then notice here how I have my A2A protocol. And I'm specifying the host as the backend, and that backend being this server here, right? So localhost over port 9999, right? Now, if I wanted to configure it that way, I can do that. I can even hit MCP server specifically through Agent Gateway. So if I run this here, notice this is hitting an MCP server that I actually created. It's on PyPy if you want to go take a look. It's called Cloud Native Architecture Diagram, right? And then I'm going to open up the UI here. All right, now once I'm in this UI, I can go to the playground, I can hit connect, and I can see my three tools that are available here. But here's the thing, that's imperative. I have a YAML configuration to connect to my Agent Gateway. Like, what if I want to do this in a declarative fashion? What if I want to do this as a platform engineer or a DevOps engineer in the realm of Kubernetes, because that's what I'm used to? Well, we can do that as well. So if we take a look here, I have the ability to not only deploy an MCP server in Kubernetes, but I can connect to it as well. So I'm just going to go ahead, clear my terminal. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to deploy this MCP server as a stateless deployment, and then I'll give it a service as well. That way we can hit it. All right, so this is deployed. We're going to go ahead and give it a minute or two. Oh, okay, actually, that was up a lot faster than I thought it was going to be. All right, so that's deployed, and then the service is deployed as well. All right, here we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a backend. All right, so this backend, this is essentially how we tell the gateway where to route to. So in this case, we're routing to this MCP server, specifically to its service, right, over the SSE protocol. All right, and then if we just run kubectl get backend, where is this? This is on the kgateway namespace. All right, we can see MCP backend type MCP accepted true. And you can specify that type there. Let's say you had you wanted to connect the backend to like a Claude model or something, you would just change that to AI. All right, the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to set up the gateway. That way we can actually route to our MCP server. All right, and then our route. So how we're actually going to get to this thing. Well, we're going to go through the gateway. That's where the parent refs are here. And then the backend refs That's to hit our backend object. And then remember, our backend object is hitting our MCP server Kubernetes service. Say that 10 times fast. All right, so let's go ahead and run this route. Beautiful. Now let's do kubectl get gateway, all namespaces. And we can see here's our gateway here. We just have to wait for the public IP address to come in because I am running this on a G-key cluster. So it's just going to assign a public ALB. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the gateway IP. I'm going to put it into the gateway IP environment variable. And then now I'm going to go ahead and hit the gateway. So I'll do a curl here. That way we can test to make sure that we can hit our MCP server. All right, and here it is. We can see the content type. We can see the upload. We got a 200 OK. We can see the MCP session ID. And then we get some output here saying what it actually is. So that's how we can utilize Agent Gateway to hit an MCP server. Let's now see what we can do about A2A interaction. So here I have a deployment. I'm going to call it A2A agent. And then I'm just going to go against this test container image for A2A. And then I'm going to give it a service as well. All right, now one thing I'll point out here as well, under ports, notice the app protocol, and it's the kgateway A2A. And the reason why you see kgateway there is, remember, kgateway is the control plane, Agent Gateway is the data plane, right? So it is a gateway specifically for AI workloads, but you still need that control plane, and that's where kgateway comes into play. All right, so now let's run kubectl get pods. Here's our A2A pod, it's running. Let's create a new gateway. We're gonna call it A2A gateway. All right, now let's create an HTTP route, and we're gonna hit the gateway, and then the backend ref, we're gonna go directly to the A2A agent, and notice that's our service here. All right, let's do kubectl get gateway, all namespaces. All right, we can see here our A2A gateway has this IP address. So we're gonna do the same thing. We're gonna get the gateway's IP. We're gonna put it into the environment variable. That is in a different namespace. What namespace is that in again? Oh, you know what? That's why, because I spelled gateway wrong. So let's go ahead and update that here. All right, got that IP address. Now let's go ahead and curl it. All right, and we can see the output here from our A2A agent, right? We can see the ID, and then we can see some text output that says, hello gateway. So now we've officially connected via the A2A protocol.